Hello, my name is Madeline and welcome to my channel Cozy Cottage Chapters and welcome to my January reading wrap-up. I read some amazing books in January. It was such a good way to start off the year. I had only 4 and 5 star ratings for my books this month, which is amazing because I am very stingy when it comes to 5 stars. And I read great books. I participated in Epistolary January, and so I have some epistolary books as well, and just some other fun, wonderful things to share with you. So let's just get into the books. Alright, we're just going to go in order of when I read these, and I will kind of talk about what they fulfill, different prompts and things like that as we go along. The book I read this month was Up the Down Staircase by Kaufman. This is an epistolary novel, so it counted for Epistolary January, and it is set in a New York City public school in the 50s, I want to say, and the story is told entirely through letters, memos, notes, assignments, student assignments, all kinds of like different types of written documents. It's such a creative way of telling this story. And we're basically following this young teacher who is just out of university. This is her first teaching job. She's all starry-eyed and has all of this ambition for teaching these kids English. And she comes to her school and finds that she's dealing with a lot more than just trying to teach English literature to these children, that there is all of these administrative tasks that are being put on her, all of these other things that she's supposed to worry about with her students, that not academic things like, are they, eating enough? Are they healthy? Are they like mentally okay? And all of these things. And she can't just focus on teaching. And she gets kind of worn down by this. She has another teacher friend who she's communicating with, who is a bit more experienced, and so she's giving her advice and things. And I just love this story so much. It's definitely kind of an inspiring story, and I just found that despite it being written and set in the 50s, it felt so relevant to today. And teachers are still tasked with all of these kind of unnecessary things that, they can't take care of, and it takes away from the actual teaching. It's just something you hear teachers talking about all the time. So I felt it was very realistic. It was just such a good story. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars, and I still think about kind of funny moments in this story. And yeah, it made me laugh, and it was really a good read. Then I read another Maisie Dobbs book. I am just really enjoying the Maisie Dobbs series. I've been kind of reading one every month for the past couple of months, and I think I might continue doing that. It's a nice kind of pace to make my way through things, and I just really enjoy the stories. So this was book number 9, Elegy for Eddie. It wasn't necessarily my favorite book in the series, but I did enjoy it. There's a lot of kind of background, and we meet some characters that Maisie knew as a child in her kind of old neighborhood before she moved and kind of became a maid, and things went from there. We follow her kind of childhood home and some of her buddies, and there was a death that they want Maisie to investigate because they don't think it was an accident. And yeah, I didn't really enjoy the mystery aspect of this one as much, but I do always enjoy being around Maisie and all of the other characters. We do get kind of some more peeks into her personal love life, and it's kind of driving me nuts, honestly, right now, because Maisie is, well, I mean, this is kind of spoilery, so if you're not to this point and you don't want to know, maybe skip ahead a bit. But Maisie is entering into a relationship, but she's also like not really ready to commit. And she's kind of like, oh, well, we'll just kind of stay together for now until I decide what I want to do later on. Meanwhile, the man is like very devoted to Maisie and wants to commit. Maisie is just kind of stringing him along, and she's like, no, I don't really want to marry him, but I also don't want to be alone, so I'm just going to kind of like stay with him for now, which I find so annoying and such a problem, and I really, really hope things will turn around. I find that so terrible. Like, it's such a terrible way to treat someone you care about, and I just hope that that's not going to continue. So I am kind of nervous for book 10. I hope things will kind of smooth out in that regard. But yes, that was Maisie Dobbs. Then I read The Wisdom of Father Brown by G.K. Chesterton. This is the second Father Brown book in the series. And these are short stories where our main character, Father Brown, is solving mysteries, but there is a lot of theology kind of interwoven with the mystery solving aspect of things. And I am really enjoying these short stories. I love Father Brown. He is such a fun and interesting character, and he's so wise, and just, yeah, I really, really enjoy these stories. I think I read through this second collection too quickly, though, and I think I need to read the stories slower pace and just have time to think about them, because they're so dense and there's so much to kind of unpack in each story, and I was just kind of like blowing through it too quickly. So I think for book 3 I'm going to go much slower and kind of just read one story every couple of days, not just like a bunch of stories all at once, if that makes sense. I counted this for Tammy's Read Catholic Fiction prompt challenge thing. Next up is The Woods in Winter by Stella Gibbons. This is such a cozy, charming, wintry book that I really, really enjoyed. It was Jen's book club pick for January, and I did not read it in time to attend the book club, but hopefully I will be able to do that for one of the upcoming book picks. I just need to keep in mind that the book club is not at the very end of the month, and I need to read it a little bit earlier. Like I said, I really enjoyed this book. We follow Ivy, who has just inherited a country cottage from her uncle who has passed away, and she leaves the city, moves to this cottage, and it's just about her life, the townspeople, the interactions she has. It has a lot of kind of Snow White vibes because she befriends a lot of animals. She has a dog that she kind of kidnaps from the city and brings with her to the countryside, and there are birds in the house because there's like a hole in the roof, and so there are birds flying into the house. And then, this is super gross, but there were like cockroaches and other insect animals that just live in the house and kind of have their own place, and she doesn't really bother. She just lets them live there. So it has lots of Snow White kind of vibes. She also kind of befriends a fox, but the fox does not live in the house. So it has lots of Snow White vibes, all these creatures and things. Ivy is kind of a spunky character. I kind of enjoyed that about her. She's very blunt. She tells things very directly, and she doesn't necessarily have a lot of friends because of her personality, but she's just such a fun character to read about. And later on in the story, there's a boy who she ends up taking in and letting stay in her house for a little while. He's run away from home, and she develops this really sweet relationship with him, and he kind of softens her heart in a lot of ways. And I just really enjoyed this story. I want to read more Stella Gibbons. It was just very wintry, cozy, atmospheric, the perfect kind of read for this time of the year. Then I read The Berlin Letters by Katherine Reay, or I should say I listened to this because I listened to this on audiobook and I adored the audiobook. That is definitely the way to go for this story. The audiobook is so well done. There are multiple narrators. It's perfection. And this is another epistolary novel that is set, well, it's set both in Berlin, East Berlin, and the United States. And the story kind of starts when the Berlin Wall goes up overnight, and this woman, she's married and she has a daughter. Her parents and her sister live in West Berlin, and the wall goes up and they've been separated. And kind of in a moment of panic, I don't want to say panic, in a very quick moment, she decides to toss her 3-year-old daughter over the fence so that she can be free with the grandparents in West Berlin. Long story short, the grandparents eventually take the daughter to the US a short while later, and she grows up in the US thinking her parents are dead. And her father is still living in East Berlin. Her mother does eventually pass away, but her father is living in East Berlin. And we kind of get to see these multiple family stories unfold, and it was such an interesting book. I really, really enjoyed learning more about Berlin during this time period, and it was just so chock full of details about the Cold War and things that I didn't necessarily know and found really interesting. I did count this for Chantel's Read Your Bookshelf Challenge book for January. The prompt was beauty. And there are multiple points in this story where the father, who is living in East Berlin, talks about the lack of beauty and how they were stripping buildings of any sort of ornamentation, anything beautiful, and just wanted things to be, you know, very, very bleak and nothing extravagant. And he at one point he's sitting in a church and he's reflecting on just how beauty has escaped his life and how much he misses having beautiful things to look at. And it's just, that was a very powerful moment and something I will definitely remember from the book, so I counted it for the beauty prompt. I read Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. This is the complete novel featuring the characters' letters and manuscripts written and folded by hand. So another Epistolary January book. And I also counted this for the Classics Reading Challenge hosted by Anne. I really, really enjoyed my reread of Little Women. It's been a number of years since I reread this book, and things stood out to me this time rereading it than previously. And I have different life circumstances and things. I think you can relate to books differently. And I just feel like I got so many different things this time around reading it, having a young daughter. And yeah, I love this story so much. I think I will make a 10 Things I Love About Little Women video to talk more about it. But yes, Little Women will kind of always be one of my top favorite books, and it was so special to get to start the year off with a reread of this. Then I read Wired Love by Ella Cheever Thayer. This is another Epistolary January book. I did really, really well when it came to Epistolary January. I read some great things. This is a romance story that follows 2 telegraph operators who fall in love at work, you could say. And so they haven't met each other face to face, but they're just exchanging these messages and chatting kind of throughout their day. And they eventually do meet each other, and, you know, circumstances unfold and things like that. What I really enjoyed about this book was how easy it was to read. It felt like a modern book, but like written as a historical romance and not a book from the late 1800s. And I just really, really enjoyed it. It was so fun. There are some really fun side characters in this story, like Quimby. Quimby is probably my favorite. He felt like he was out of a P.G. Wodehouse book. He was just so clumsy and made so many mistakes and was just so funny, and I really, really liked him. I will say our main female character, Natty, I believe is her name, she felt a little immature to me. She was just so quick to believe anything anyone said to her, and she never really kind of thought about things like, does this actually make sense, what this person is saying? She would just immediately believe them and kind of jump to extreme conclusions, and that kind of drove me nuts after a certain while because it kept happening. But I kept reading really for the side characters. If the main character wasn't my favorite, the side characters were a lot of fun to read about, and I definitely would recommend it. And then my final read for the month is a middle grade, and that is Astrid the Unstoppable by Maria Parr. This is set in Norway. We follow Astrid, this spunky young girl who is the only kid to live in her village. There's a kind of hotel wellness resort thing, but the owner hates kids. They're never allowed to stay there. And Astrid is very sad because she wants kids to be able to play with. And she has this kind of grumpy old man who is her best friend. And it's just a really, really sweet story that kind of goes in a couple of different directions. There are some fun references to the book Heidi, which I love and I read recently. So I really, really enjoyed all of those references. And yeah, this is just kind of a sweet, charming middle grade story. It's about family, it's about friendship, it's about forgiveness, and I just really, really enjoyed it. That is it for all of the books I read in January. I read a lot of good stuff. I do have one book that will be carrying over into February, House by Sigrid Undset. This is the third Kristen Lavrenstatter book. I am about 150 pages into it. I won't say too much about it. I am enjoying things. I do think that as time goes on, I have more of an appreciation for Kristen. I understand her better, and I realize more that kind of the things that annoy me about Kristen, the fact that she, you know, continues to make mistakes and continues to kind of do the same things over and over again, even though she technically should know better, annoy me because that's just how humans are. That's how we all are. We keep making the same mistakes. We keep choosing to do bad things when we know we shouldn't. And you don't necessarily have to make the same bad mistakes as Kristen, I think, to see yourself in her and see how, you know, we are all in some ways Kristen. And so I think as time goes on, I appreciate her more and I understand her more, and I realize more kind of why she's written the way she is. And yeah, I'm just starting to have more of an appreciation for these books, and they are stories that stick with me. I feel like I can't get these characters out of my head and this story out of my head. So I appreciate that about it. And I'm looking forward to continuing this in February and just, you know, savoring this story. All right, that is it for my January reading wrap up. Like I said, a lot of really good books this month, and I am looking forward to February and seeing what I read. Below what you read this month, if you read any great books, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye!